Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
Alrighty, Vikings Vent Line. Happy Super Bowl, happy big game to you here on Vikings Vent Line on Purple Daily. This is a daily Vikings show, and every weekend I still like to catch up with Vikings fans on Vikings Vent Line. During the regular season, we welcome guests on with us right after the game, but then during the offseason, I still like to catch up with as many Vikings fans as possible from around the country, around the globe. So if you'd like to be on a future episode of Vikings Vent Line, you can hit me up. It's vikingsventline@gmail.com. Scrolling across the bottom of the YouTube channel right now. And for our podcast audience, vikingsventline@gmail.com if this is a show you'd like to join. And speaking of the big game, go download the Underdog app if you haven't already. Use promo code SCORE. You'll get a 50% deposit match and a free pick with Travis Kelce as well. So last second, go grab that Underdog app. Use promo code SCORE for a 50% deposit match, plus a no sweat token too for those current users. Shout out to Underdog, who's done a great job helping us out here on Purple Daily all season long. I'm going to catch up with our friends Justin and Josh here in just a sec. But if you want to hit that subscribe button for Daily Vikings Entertainment, appreciate that. We're going to talk some offseason expectations, where they want what Josh and Jeff want to see the Vikings do this year. So very excited to chat with them. And again, hit me up if you want to be on a future episode. It's vikingsventline@gmail.com. All right, let's get our guys in here. Let's get Josh and Jeff. Josh, did you email me that you're from Florida? Am I just completely pulling that out of my rear end? Where are you from?
No, I live in Florida, and I've been living down here for about 12, 13 years now.
Okay. And did you grow up in Minnesota, or how'd you become a Vikings fan?
No, I grew up in a little town in Ohio. My grandpa was a Lions fan. To spite him, my dad became a Vikings fan back in the 70s. And so then I became a Vikings fan.
Awesome. Love that. And Jeff, welcome to Vikings Vent Line. Your origins, where are you located, and how long have you been a Vikings fan?
So I have actually located to Southern California. So I've been in Southern California for about 20 years. I'm originally from upstate New York, and watching the Buffalo Bills lose 4 Super Bowls in a row as a young kid, I was like, I can't do that to myself. So I went to a team that lost our 4 Super Bowls in a matter of like 6-7 years.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's brutal when you pick this team, whether it was from your father or brother or grandpa or uncle. It is kind of interesting how everyone finds their way to heartbreak with this team. Fellas, I want to get into some offseason stuff here. We've obviously done some offseason blueprints on the main episodes of Purple Daily. I still like to ask Vikings fans what they'd like to do. Josh, I'm going to start with you here. Who is your top free agent target for the Vikings this offseason?
So I definitely want to shore up the offensive line. I just don't believe Kansas City is going to let Trey Smith walk. But if he does hit the open market, that's going to be my number one. However, I think taking a different approach and shoring up both guard spots, we could go with Tevin Jenkins from the Bears for left guard. And then you would move Brandell to that swing guard spot. And then I really like Will Fries from the Colts before his injury. He was up and coming. Plus, he's very young. So that would shore up both guard spots kind of long term rather than a stopgap.
Sure. Yeah, they need as many guard help as possible. Trey Smith being maybe the big ticket item. We'll see what his future is in Kansas City. They could franchise tag him. But regardless, I think getting one, if not two, whether that's a new center and replacing Bradbury, or just getting 2 new guards in general and kicking that center conversation down the road for either the draft or for future off seasons. Yeah, sure up the offensive line. It's been the missing link, and it's been just a beating of the same drum for the last multiple years for Vikings fans. Jeff, how about you, man? Are you kind of in lockstep with Josh, offensive line? Is there anything else you'd like to see the Vikings target this offseason?
Yeah, definitely not to beat a dead horse, but that offensive line needs some help. But, just what everyone else is saying, I'm going to take a step back and go back to our secondary. I think there's some studs out there. I think with DJ Reed, Javarius Ward, Asante Samuels Jr. I think the way that Brian Flores likes to press, and if we can get pressure on the quarterback, if we can get these guys in the back to at least give the guys up front a couple seconds, we can wreak havoc, and we can kind of shore up a lot of those leaks in the secondary.
Yeah, cornerback's one where I actually think they probably performed better than we thought they were going into the season. I mean, they had Gilmore and they had Shaq Griffin. Losing Mekhi Blackman was definitely even a bigger gut punch of like, well, now what are they going to do? This was a decent rookie who's going to enter a big year the second year. Obviously, the unfortunate passing and tragedy of Kyrie Jackson. So, like, you went into the season just thinking, like, they're going to get picked apart and that pass rush better get home. And the pass rush did get home. And yeah, there was moments I think last year, especially tackling too, just in general, like they could have been a lot better, but probably exceeded expectations. That being said, we're still having probably the same conversation we were having from a year ago, which is can the cornerback position going to go address it and find it and make it deeper? Because this league is now too good with so many other quarterbacks where they're just going to eventually pick you apart, especially with these quick passes. We saw it with Stafford, saw it with Jared Goff, that they just picked apart the Vikings defense because they didn't have any answers to the test, and these old cornerbacks couldn't keep up. So we'll certainly see. I think those are good ones. Running back, what do they do with Aaron Jones is obviously still a big one. I wouldn't be opposed to bringing him back. Josh, are you okay with moving on from Aaron Jones? Would you bring back Aaron Jones?
I'd have a conversation about it because I think he's great for the locker room. He's a really good dude, and you could tell like he brings a lot of spirit to that team. Kind of why like the same reason why you would want to bring back Cam Bynum, even though he's going to be expensive. It's like it's kind of that's like that culture that they're building. However, I don't think I would bring him back being a little bit older on a $7 million a year type of deal. I think honestly, Jordan Mason, we saw him when we played the 49ers, right? I think if you show up at the middle of the line, which is I think the biggest reason why our running backs haven't been good the last few years, he would be a good second back to the guy that we go and get in the draft.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
And I don't think he's going to get beat up. Like I really do like Aaron Jones, but he's on the smaller side. So he's going to take those hits that some of these, the older you get, you don't like getting hit anymore. You know what I mean?
No kidding. Amen. Well, speaking of the draft, so what are we looking at the draft here? Where if they've shown up maybe some offensive line or cornerback, I guess what positions, Jeff, do you look at in the draft that you're like, Kwesi, go fix this? They have a limited amount of picks too, so are you looking at maybe trading back to accumulate more picks? Are you sick of trading back? What is your strategy for the Vikings at the draft this year?
Definitely sick of trading back, but definitely bully ball. We're going to adjust the offensive line in free agency. Now let's go get some of those big defensive tackles in the draft. Kenneth Grant, Khalil Williams, Thor's guy, Dion something. I think that's what we need. Get some of these offensive linemen off our linebackers. Get some of these big. Defensive linemen, just to take two offensive linemen and pull them back. That's going to free up Cashman. That's going to free up Van Ginkel. That's going to free up Dallas Turner coming off the edge. So some big interior offensive line is, where we're going to put our money.
Yeah. Yeah, if they're not going to fix or address defensive line in free agency, it does feel like the betting favorite, right? If there was a money line or a position of number one need going into the draft. And from what it sounds like talking to Thor, there's, there's options at the defensive line for them to go get. Yeah, I know Vikings fans are definitely sick of the whole trading back thing, but with just so much limited picks, I wouldn't, if they moved back from, I think they're at 25 right now, right? If they moved back 4 or 5 spots, still had a first round pick, and we're able to get, a couple more round 3, 4, maybe even a second round, like a late round second pick, I wouldn't be opposed to that either. But they still have some positions in need, and I'm going to guess they're going to want more shots at that dartboard. Josh, how about you, man? What positions of need do you want to see the Vikings address in the draft?
Oh, I'm completely in step with my counterpart over here. I think my two big guys that I wrote down there if they're there at 24, you pick and you don't trade back. Is Kenneth Grant's my number 1, and then Talik Williams is my number 2. I think you can get Deion Walker in the later round if you do go back farther, but he's still more of a project because he doesn't know how to play with lower pad levels, so he gets stood up too much, even though he's a monster. But I think I'm with you. If you can move back from 24 to 27, 28 and pick up a couple of extra picks and still get one of those guys, then great. But I don't think Kenneth Grant's going to last that much longer. So if he's there, you take him. I also do think that a lot of people aren't talking about this, but you can use the transition tag on Darnold. That would put his cap hit around 34. He's going to get paid that anyway. Somebody will give you a third round for him. So I think we're still going to be doing that and get draft capital there. And we don't know what they're going to do. There might be some other things that they try out to get more draft capital before the draft, but I just don't want to see us drop back, another 12, 13, 14 spot. There's a drop off between 24 and 35.
For sure.
And I haven't seen Kwesi do a good enough job in the draft to trust him picking the right guy after that drop off.
Yeah, that is a gap. You're right. I mean, I feel like the top, the surefire can't miss prospects, the first 5 guys and even the top 10 picks of the draft are obviously great. And then it just naturally, as the board falls off, like you're going to have a success hit rate as the board continues to go down. I mean, it probably segues into our next talker. So, Josh, are you still have kind of 1 foot out the door with Kwesi, or maybe just still some cautious optimism that he's the right guy for the GM job for the Vikings?
Yeah. So with Kwesi, he kind of already set a precedent on other teams know they can own him in a trade. So every time he goes to trade draft picks, he gets fleeced essentially. We gave up, they said we gave up too much to move up 1 spot to get McCarthy. I was okay with what we gave up for McCarthy at least. But if you look at the overall trade from going from our second rounder to our all the way up to 16th when it finally was that we took the defensive end last year, we gave up entirely way too much draft capital just to get up there. And there was a lot of talent still on the board at even the 22 spot that we held when we first initially moved up. Mm-hmm. Which tells me there's going to be a lot of talent at 24 when we pick 2. So that's why I said you don't really have to trade if you don't want to. But I feel like teams now know that they can kind of get one over on them. And even our players know, like how Hawkinson handled his contract extension situation. They kind of know that they can win the battle in that room against him. And I don't know how you overcome that. So he did do a great job in free agency, in my opinion, with what he had in both years. We went after not the top guys, but like that 3rd, 4th tier guy, or not tier, but like the 3rd or 4th best. And they fit our scheme, and all 7 guys that he brought in played great for us and everything like that. So I think he can do that. We can keep doing that in free agency, but at the end of the day, he only has 1 good draft pick. Everybody keeps saying Ivan Pace, but Ivan Pace was paid to come here. He wasn't drafted.
Right.
So in 3 drafts, we've only seen 1, maybe 2, because we have Will Riker too, but you've only seen 2 people actually contribute to this team. And I think JJ is going to be our franchise quarterback. So I do think he's going to add a lot to going forward for that. So 2024 is still to be determined. I just don't know if I would give him extension this offseason. Go out and actually prove that you can be better than what you have the last 2.5+ years.
Jeff, how about you, man? I mean, obviously, Josh has a lot of questions there about Kwesi. They're justified. Do you have a little bit more wiggle room? Do you trust him? Where are you kind of at with Kwesi?
I do trust him. I'm a finance guy, so I understand the analytical part of it. But he's just missed, and don't get it twisted. I've made some bad decisions as well. But 2002 or 2022 really haunts us. The trade with Detroit to get Jameson Williams, and then not being able to draft Kyle Hamilton, haunts me every single Sunday. Thank goodness that Williamson's kind of the head case and really can't stay on the field and make some really poor decisions. But when I'm seeing Kyle Hamilton coming through the middle and picking guys off and blowing up runs in the gap, it really hurts my stomach. But I give him a little bit of room in 22 because he was new. He didn't have the whole offseason. I think they were still trying to fight the Donashell picks. But I mean, it really hurts whiffing on 2 drafts. And you've seen teams like Philadelphia, Baltimore continue to restack year after year after losing, big names in free agency. And, thank goodness we're not losing big names in free agency. But I think if we can retool and kind of backfill some of these positions, and, that's why we're stuck thinking about Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler. with so often, and we really need to be able to put a good draft together, complement that with free agency, and play chess and not checkers anymore.
Absolutely. I have another question for you guys here too, involving the leadership, but a shout out to our friends at Standard Heating up here in the Twin Cities. So if you're looking for some furnace and HVAC updates, making sure it's all working ship shape, I had my guy Connor come out to my place here, and I'm even renting. If you have a rental property, I know sometimes you let them handle it. No, let's our guys at Standard handle it instead. They have a great team over there. They're able to help out, give me some pointers too on what to look for even in that furnace for someone like me who has pretty dumbfounded when it comes to household chores. Connor made it sound pretty simple, which was very helpful. Go to standardheating.com to book that HVAC and furnace update repair. I can join their Smart Club, which gives you a priority scheduling, discount on repairs as well. Shout out to Standard Heating, who have jumped on board here with us on Purple Daily. So, Jeff, I know both you guys kind of had some comments and some questions about Kwesi, but KOC, Jeff, like, are you just full trust and full steam ahead with Kevin O'Connell? I got to imagine there's a little bit more cushion and a little bit more wiggle room for even, some criticisms and mistakes here and there. Do you still trust Kevin O'Connell?
100%. You hear a lot of this, fire KOC, or, question his play call. I'll question his play call, but I mean, do we remember Brad Childress? Do you remember Mike Tice? Do we remember Leslie Frazier? I mean, we had Super Bowl winning coaches on that staff, and we let them go to keep those guys. KOC is the gel. He keeps these players going, and I think as his name gets around the league, you're going to see a lot more free agents want to come to play for him and come in Minnesota. I think complement that with Flores for as long as he stays. We have built a foundation to win. People go to Kansas City to play for Andy Reid. People went to New England to play for Belichick. And if we can get that name with KOC, we're going to get these free agents. They're going to take a little bit of a discount to hopefully come to Minnesota and bring us that chip.
Love it. Josh, how about you, man? Where do you fall with KOC, who obviously just picked up Coach of the Year award this year too?
100%. I think he's probably, if he's not top 5, he's top 3 play caller in the league. I know everybody kind of harps on, he does make, you'll have 1 or 2 calls in a game where it's like, why did you really go that way? But I think a lot of this, why he gets away from the run game and everything like that we've been just struggling with is the fact that he knows that he can't not run the ball. And if you really look at it, it's not, this is why I say I don't think it's really on the running backs. The last 3 years, our expected run average has been about the same with 3 different running backs. And then Alexander Mattison, he didn't do anything last year for us. This year, he had games where he looked pretty good for the Raiders. And they're a trash team. So the way I look at it is KOC's not running away from the run, so to speak, and just only wanting to pass because he's incapable. He just knows that he needs to get a yard, and it's better to do a bootleg than it is to run against a wall because he can't trust that middle offensive line because they get forklift all the time. So I'm 100% on KOC. I agree with Jeff. I think he's one of those coaches that he's going to be here for the next 10 years, and players are going to take discounts to come here and play. We have a great facility. We have a great fan base. Like, we travel very well. I've been to a lot of football games, and we drown out stadiums when we're away. Like, it's crazy what the Vikings used to be when I was a kid. Right. Compared to now, it seems like now everybody wants to be a Vikings fan. And I think KOC is going to keep that culture running, man. So I'm glad we extended him. I think he needs to be here for a long term because he's probably the second best head coach that we've had as an organization.
You guys have any other last takes, Jeff? Any last hot takes you weren't able to get off your chest here on Vent Line? Any shout outs you'd love to give here before we wrap up? What do you got?
My hot take really is, I think we've seen this the last 2 years is Brian Flores' defense gets tired at the end of the year. I think all that blitzing kind of wears these guys out. Let's get some more people in there. Let's do the rotation. Let's get back to bully ball. Let's get some big offensive defensive linemen. Let's run the ball, open it up for me in the pass game. I want to give a shout out to my wife. Thank you for allowing me to drag you all across the country to go to Minnesota games. Thank you for giving me my 3 hours a week so I can watch my squad. Shout out to my daughter and my son, Rizzuto and Jeter, future Viking fans coming up. And Josh Metellus, we love you, man. Stay from Minnesota as long as you can.
Jeff, I'm just gonna take a wild guess. Are you a Yankee fan?
I am born and raised a Yankee fan. Minnesota is my only outlier, which is funny.
I love that. I don't know what the giveaway of Rizzuto and Jeter. I was like, wait a minute, that was not a coincidence, right? I love that, man. Those are awesome names. Josh, how about you, man? Any last takes? Any shout outs here on Vikings Vent Line?
Yeah, I agree with Jeff, man. I think we just need to start in the trenches. I'm going to throw out a name that he's going to be very inexpensive, and I think we need to bring him in free agency is Deshaun Hand. He's about 350 pounds. You can just put him in the middle. He can be a first and second down type of guy, rotational piece. Because again, what Jeff said, like we saw our cornerbacks get tired towards the end of the season, and I think we need to bring in just a plethora of players that can all participate. I'm big on McLaughlin. I think he's going to be a good cornerback for us as well. And I'll just shout out my daughter, JoJo. She's a Vikings fan too. She likes dressing up. We have the plaid overalls and everything. We wear the same thing during game day. If we're winning, we don't those things don't get washed. If we lose, we wash the loss off. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna shout her out. She'll watch this on later, and she'll be happy to hear her name.
I love that, man. Yeah, I love the family affair it's turned into. I love, to you guys' point, the Vikings fans traveling. I mean, that's been like the craziest thing from our side is we had no idea. We're based here in Minneapolis, and we grew up in Minnesota and been Vikings fans or followed the team our entire lives, and we had no idea in the last 5 years, to Josh's and Jeff's point there, of you travel and they're all over the place. Like that was not the case when I was younger, or even like 10, 15 years ago. So it's wild and very cool to see all these Vikings fans from across the country. So appreciate you guys. Thank you for joining Vikings Vent Line. Again, if anyone wants to join a future episode, it's vikingsventline@gmail.com. Hit me up if you want to be on. Purple Daily Vikings Entertainment. We just want to see the Vikings win a Super Bowl before we die.